All right, ready to dive into something you probably don't think about too much? We're going deep into the world of waste management today.
Yeah, trash. Not exactly glamorous, right?
You might be surprised. We've got a whole stack of YouTube videos to unpack here, and let me tell you, there's some seriously interesting stuff in there. Economics, technology, the environment. You'll never look at your garbage can the same way again.
I think what's fascinating is how much this impacts everyone every day, whether you realize it or not.
Totally. And to kick things off, Alex.com hit us with a pretty crazy stat. Get this. The U.S. produces 250 million tons of garbage every year.
250 million. Wow.
That's more than any other country in the world. Think about it. All that stuff we throw away, all those millions of people, it really adds up.
It does. And this isn't just an American problem, of course. The waste management industry globally, it's already huge. Like a $285 billion business, huge. And Alex.com says that number isn't going to nearly double in the next 5 years.
So it's a growing problem, but also a huge opportunity, it sounds like.
Absolutely. It's tied to so many things, too. The environment, for one. And you see how waste management is handled so differently around the world. Take Taipei, for example.
Yeah, Alex.com mentioned that. They charge households based on how much waste they produce. Do you think that kind of system could work elsewhere?
It definitely seems effective in Taipei. People are a lot more mindful about what they toss when it directly affects their wallets.
Makes sense.
But you also have to consider the resources and the infrastructure different places have. Like in that Eco-Mastery Project video, they showed how in a lot of developing countries, even basic waste collection can be a struggle.
Right.
It leads to pollution, health risks, really a stark contrast to what we see in developed countries.
It really is. Speaking of developed countries, I was fascinated by this CNBC video about landfills in the U.S. I always pictured them as just these giant smelly dumps, but apparently they're not so simple anymore.
No, not at all. They've really evolved thanks in part to things like the Solid Waste Disposal Act and the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. Those were big steps forward.
So those laws basically forced landfills to clean up their act, so to speak.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing environmental impact. Landfills nowadays, they have liners to prevent leaks. They have systems to manage the gases released by decomposing waste. It's a whole science.
It's surprisingly profitable, right?
Oh, yeah. CNBC broke down this thing called a tipping fee, which is basically what landfills charge per ton of waste.
So the more trash they take in, the more money they make.
Pretty much. And the average tipping fee in 2020 was $53.72 per ton, but that can vary a lot depending on location.
Really?
Oh, yeah. CNBC mentioned that in Delaware, it's $85 a ton, but in Arkansas, it's only $30.
What causes that kind of difference?
Well, think about it. Land is scarce in a place like Delaware, high operating costs. Those factors all play into it.
That makes sense. It's all about supply and demand, even with garbage.
Right. And speaking of the industry, CNBC highlighted how just two companies dominate the U.S. market, Waste Management and Republic Services.
So it's a pretty consolidated industry.
It is. And that raises some interesting questions about competition, pricing, how do you balance profit with environmental responsibility?
That's a good question. But it seems like those companies are getting pretty creative with turning trash into, well, not trash. CNBC showed some pretty amazing examples.
Oh, yeah. Landfill mining, for one. That's where they dig up old landfills to recover valuable materials. They actually featured a company in Maine that made over $7 million just from scrap metal they recovered from an old landfill.
Wow, so it's literally like treasure hunting and trash. What else are they doing?
Well, remember those systems to capture the methane from decomposing waste?
Uh-huh.
Lots of landfills are using that gas now to produce electricity and fuel.
Seriously.
Yeah, CNBC said that these projects generate enough electricity to power over 1 million homes every year.
That's incredible.
It is. Although CNBC did mention that there's some debate about how sustainable these projects are in the long run and how much they rely on government subsidies.
So it's not a perfect solution.
No, it's complicated. Even when it seems like we're turning trash into something good, there are always trade-offs to consider. Speaking of different approaches, the Wall Street Journal took us to Singapore, where they're doing things quite differently.
Oh, yeah, with those massive incinerators, right?
Exactly. They have very limited land there, so they've turned to waste-to-energy plants to deal with their trash. Their Tuas Sound plant, it can handle 6 million pounds of waste every single day.
6 million.
Yeah, and they generate enough electricity to power 240,000 households from that. It's pretty impressive.
It sounds like it. But is burning trash really a good solution? I mean, what about the pollution?
That's a valid concern. There are definitely concerns about air pollution and what to do with the toxic ash left over from the burning.
So it's a trade-off, like you said.
It always is. And CNBC also touched on some really cool technologies that are being used to clean up plastic pollution in our oceans. They showed these trash wheels in Baltimore, which are basically giant water-powered contraptions that scoop up plastic from the harbor.
I saw those. They look so effective.
They're pretty amazing, and they've caught a lot of attention. And then there's the Ocean Cleanup Project, which is developing these massive floating barriers to collect plastic in rivers and oceans.
So lots of innovation happening.
There is. But CNBC made it clear that these technologies are more about treating the symptoms, not the underlying cause of the problem. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bigger wound.
So where do we go from here? What are the long-term solutions?
That's where this whole idea of a circular economy comes in. It's about moving away from this linear model of take, make, dispose, and instead seeing waste as a resource.
I like that.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like?
Well, imagine products that are designed to be durable, repairable, and easily disassembled for recycling. Materials would be continuously reused, and we'd minimize the need for new resources. It's a big shift in thinking, but it's a crucial one.
That's pretty ambitious. Is it even achievable?
Well, there are companies and governments already taking steps in this direction. CNBC talked about the rise of EV battery recycling, for example.
Oh yeah, with the electric car boom. We're going to need to figure out what to do with all those batteries.
Exactly. And CNBC featured this company called Spire's New Technologies, which is already refurbishing and recycling EV batteries. They've serviced over 240,000 battery packs so far.
Wow.
So it's happening. But it's not just about relying on technology. Remember that Let's Do video? They emphasized the importance of individual action with the 7 R's of waste management.
Oh yeah. Rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, regulate, research.
It's a great framework for making more conscious choices in our daily lives. We all have a role to play in creating a more sustainable future.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation already. From the sheer scale of the global waste problem to those ingenious trash wheels and the promise of a circular economy, it's clear there's a lot more to this industry than meets the eye.
I agree, and it's a reminder that even something as seemingly mundane as trash can be fascinating, complex, and even hopeful when you look deeper.
We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the world of waste management. Stay tuned.
So we're back. Still digging deep into this whole waste management thing. Before the break, we were talking about, rethinking how we think about waste.
Right.
Moving towards a circular economy.
Yeah, that idea really stuck with me. But, practically speaking, how do we get there? It seems like a huge leap.
It is a big shift, but it's not impossible. Remember those 7 R's from the Let's Do video? Rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, regulate, research. They're all about taking action.
Right.
And it starts with being more mindful as consumers. Do I really need another plastic water bottle, or can I use my reusable one? Simple things like that.
That makes sense. It's about breaking those habits we've all developed. Sometimes I catch myself buying things I don't really need, just on impulse.
We all do it. It's being more aware of those impulses. And when we do buy things, thinking about how long they'll last, if they can be repaired.
Right.
Keeping them in use for as long as possible. That's the key.
And then there's recycling, which, I try to do my part, but sometimes I get so confused about what goes where, all those different bins. It makes you wonder if it's even worth the effort.
Recycling is definitely important, but you're right, it can be complicated. And sometimes things end up in the landfill anyway, if they're not sorted properly.
Right.
But the Wall Street Journal showed how technology is playing a role here, too. Some companies are using AI to sort recyclables, which is pretty cool.
AI for garbage sorting. Wow. Technology really seems to be a big part of this whole waste management thing, like those trash wheels we talked about, and now this.
It is. But we have to remember, technology is a tool. It can help us manage the waste we already have, but ultimately, we need to reduce the amount we create in the first place.
You're right. So how do we do that?
Well, one idea is extended producer responsibility. It's about making producers, the companies that make the products, accountable for the entire life cycle of those products.
Even after we've thrown them away.
Even then, it could mean using more recycled materials, designing products that are easier to recycle.
Interesting.
Even taking back products at the end of their life.
So basically making them think about the environmental impact from the very beginning.
Exactly. It's a win-win, really. Better for the environment, and it encourages companies to be more innovative.
Makes me wonder why this isn't already the standard.
There can be pushback from manufacturers, of course. They see it as an added cost. But as consumers demand more sustainable products, things will have to change.
Speaking of companies changing, the Wall Street Journal also had a video about waste management, that big landfill company we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
They're actually starting to invest in things like renewable natural gas production and advanced recycling. Seems like they're seeing the potential in a circular economy, too.
It's a sign of the times, really. The economics are shifting, landfill costs are going up, demand for recycled materials is increasing. It just makes good business sense to move in this direction.
So it's not just about being eco-friendly anymore, it's about the bottom line, too.
Right. And government policy plays a big role, too. Regulations are important, but incentives for recycling, promoting new technologies.
Okay, so we've talked about individual actions, new technologies, government policies. What's the one big takeaway you want listeners to remember from all of this?
I think the most important thing is to remember that waste isn't inevitable. It's a problem we created, which means we can solve it.
That's a good way to put it.
It's about changing how we design, produce, consume, and manage our materials.
That makes sense.
It's not just about reducing the bad, it's about doing more good.
I like that. Doing more good. And there are already so many great examples out there, right? We've seen how people are coming up with innovative solutions all over the world.
Yeah. From those community composting programs to those high-tech sorting facilities, it's pretty inspiring.
It's not just about those big, flashy solutions either.
Right. Every little bit counts.
Choosing reusable products, composting at home, even just sorting your recycling correctly. It all adds up.
It does. And speaking of adding up, we haven't even touched on the social justice aspect of all this.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. How waste management systems can be so different depending on where you live.
Right. It's not fair that some communities bear the brunt of the negative consequences of poorly managed waste. Everyone deserves access to safe and sustainable systems.
Absolutely. A truly sustainable future means everyone benefits.
Exactly. A cleaner, healthier world for all.
I think that's a great note to end on. We've explored the challenges, the solutions, the technology, the policies. But ultimately, it comes down to us.
Our shared responsibility.
To create a world where waste isn't a problem, but a resource.
That's a future worth fighting for.
I'm feeling pretty inspired, actually. We'll be back soon to wrap things up and share some resources for our listeners who want to learn more about this fascinating world of waste management. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We've been on this fascinating journey through the world of waste management, and it's been amazing to see how much there is to discover about something we often take for granted.
Yeah, it's not exactly a glamorous topic, but as we've seen, it's incredibly important and surprisingly complex.
Absolutely. From mountains of trash to high-tech solutions and the whole idea of a circular economy, it's clear that waste management touches every aspect of our lives. One thing that really stuck with me throughout this conversation was the idea of waste as a design flaw. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it's a really powerful way to frame it. It challenges us to think differently about how we approach this whole issue. Instead of seeing waste as an inevitable byproduct, we can start to see it as a problem we've created and therefore a problem we can solve.
It makes you realize that we have the power to change things.
Exactly. And a big part of that is shifting away from this linear take, make, dispose model and embracing a more circular approach.
Right, that circular economy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remind us what that actually looks like in practice?
Sure. In a circular economy, we're designing products with their entire life cycle in mind. Durability, repairability, and recyclability are key.
Yeah.
Materials are constantly being reused and reintegrated into the system, so we're minimizing waste and the need for virgin resources. It's about closing the loop.
It's like mimicking nature's own systems.
Yeah, exactly. Nature doesn't really have waste, right?
Yeah.
Everything is interconnected and serves a purpose. That's the kind of thinking we need to apply to our own systems.
And we've seen some really encouraging examples of this shift already happening, haven't we?
We have. Companies are investing in innovative recycling technologies, governments are implementing policies to support sustainable practices, and consumers are becoming more conscious of their choices.
It seems like there's a growing momentum toward a more sustainable future.
I think so. And it's being driven by a combination of factors like growing environmental concerns, advancements in technology, and even shifting economic realities. It just makes sense from multiple angles.
Right. It's not just about being eco-friendly anymore. It's good for business, too.
Absolutely. And remember, the transition to a circular economy isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take time and effort from all of us.
So what can our listeners do to get involved and make a difference?
Well, first and foremost, educate yourself. Learn about the waste management systems in your community, the challenges they face, and what you can do to help. Remember those 7 Rs.
Oh, yeah. Rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, regulate, research.
Exactly. They're a great guide for making more conscious choices in our daily lives. And don't underestimate the power of your voice. Support businesses that are committed to sustainability, advocate for stronger environmental policies, and talk to your friends and family about these issues.
It's about making it a conversation, spreading awareness.
Absolutely. Even small changes can have a big impact when we all do our part.
So choosing reusable products over disposable ones, composting food scraps, making sure we're recycling correctly, these things all add up.
They do. And for those who want to learn more and dive even deeper, we'll be sharing links to all the videos we mentioned in the show notes, along with some great organizations like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the World Economic Forum, and the EPA.
Lots of great resources to check out. This deep dive has been such a fascinating journey. We started with something that seems pretty ordinary, like trash, and uncovered a whole world of complexity, innovation, and hope.
I agree. It's a reminder that even the most mundane things can be full of surprises when you take a closer look.
And that we all have a role to play in creating a more sustainable future. So let's all do our part to rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, regulate, and research our way to a world where waste isn't a problem but a valuable resource.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.